I was just sitting here listening to a podcast while enjoying the fire, and I suddenly remembered that years and years ago, back when I was really sick with lots of different diseases that I no longer experience, that at some point it's like I got tired of this is as good as it gets, because that's what I was living Groundhog Day experience wise. That it was like, doctors and specialists and everyone was telling me, you've just got to learn to manage this, and, life really won't get any better than this, is what I kept being told. And I mean, I bought into that for a long time. But then at some point, I was like, but what if? What if there is another possibility? It's like I let that little crack open. And then it somehow grew. And the memory and flashback that I just had was where I actually intuitively, through my heart, sent out this like if, if I was to use words to describe what I felt projected from me, was like, give me a sign of hope. Because when you drop out of the mind and into the heart space or the body or whatever, there's no direct words for doing it based off the feeling rather than thinking about it and then embodying that temporarily, I guess, would be the best description. But the reason that I came to that was because I remember at some point a while ago, it feels like it might have been a couple of years ago, I remember seeing Satya Speaks, and his main message in the video was, tell life that you love it. But, don't just say it, but mean it and feel it. And essentially, like, that was what I was asking from life. Whereas now, and it's interesting now because of where I'm at now, like, for me, it's a lot harder to go back and, dissect outside of the present moment. Because the way that I was, the state of being that I was in, was so different to now. Where the way in which I actively co-create with life rather than like questioning, like, can I have this experience, whatever that experience may be. Like, say for example my experience with chainsaws and firewood and stuff, it's, for me, if there's an opportunity to do something, I just do it and then just figure it out as I go. Whereas previously in my human experience, it was always stuck in the mind and thinking like, either like step by step or like certain particular benchmarks. Whereas now it's mostly just focusing on the experience, in the moment. That sometimes I'll have some idea, like, at some point I didn't want to hand file chains any longer. So at some point I was like, yeah, it's time to get a chain grinder. And just get a chain grinder. Whereas I used to use so much of my energy thinking over things, and one of the things that really helped me to actively involved in what was happening in the mind rather than it doing its own thing was seeing how aligned what was in the mind to the experience I was having, to the experience that I knew that I could have. Be that staying emotionally connected and open, connected to my energy, connected to my physical body, having awareness of the present moment, not because there's always a level of awareness of your awareness and where your awareness is at. Like right now, anyone watching this would have some awareness of how much awareness they have of me in this video versus them, because if they're using the video to distract themselves for something, or whatever the thing is, the awareness is going to be on the other thing. And it's a good starting point for anyone who's wanting to work more consciously with the mind is, how much awareness do you have of the mind, or how much do you identify with it, and then figure out your percentage as you become aware of the pendulum swing in your awareness to your thought. And also being aware as you're speaking that, is that your authentic truth? Is that you being the deepest part of you that you know that you can be and embody? Or are you wearing some mask and trying to portray something for either external or internal reasons? Like, sometimes that's because there's something that you're wanting to actively shift within yourself, or your human external experience. I heard somewhere or read somewhere recently, and it was something to do with like laying in bed sleeping at night. And the moment that I chose to realize that I only know myself as well as I know myself in any given moment, and simply accepting myself as I am and as I'm becoming, and took the pressure off myself about myself, that I know where I am in like my center in my being, and kind of the flow in which I enjoy flowing with life. And the more I stay following that, that's what gives me the clarity and peace. And I mean, that's also after spending a lot of time intentionally, consciously working with the mind and the physical body and emotional body, energy body, integrating, and also, beyond the physical also, working with different states of consciousness and different states of being to, completely allow myself to either lose the mind completely and essentially it just becomes nothing in the mind besides it simply being a pass-through filter, or then being consumed in the mind and having the polar opposite experience, but then having an awareness of the stillness in between all of that throughout all of the experiences simultaneously. It's both pendulum swings of duality but also non-duality, so the three simultaneously. The same as at some point in the past, I, for some reason, would have, I know that I used to think that samadhi state of being was only during meditative processes and all of that, until I integrated more of that into my natural state of being, due to the choices that I was choosing. That then, as I got deeper into deeper states of samadhi in human physical experiences beyond, eyes closed, and then integrating spirit, what I would call spiritual sight with physical sight simultaneously, and not even having the vocabulary beyond what I've shared now to even articulate what it is that I'm experiencing, because I don't even, it's like there's only little parts of Hindu culture and Sanatana Dharma that I've heard from different people. So I'm still it's really interesting because samadhi, for example, I was really grateful for discovering the term samadhi at some point, because then I had a word to articulate an experience that I was experiencing. Whereas I also have this awareness that I had an awareness of it before I even experienced it for what I perceive would have been the first times consciously. That it's when I talk about flowing with life, through life, that it's that feeling. There's a particular energetic frequency of everything's kind of optimal, even if experiences are challenging or frustrating or whatever. It's, whether you get stuck in the mind or whatever, it's if that's the experience that you're ultimately, best served having in that particular moment, because otherwise there's a pull to be being in a different way. Sometimes that's physically or internally, and really embracing the full totality of the human experience, from forgetting about higher states of consciousness when your state of consciousness drifts in another direction, and then just allowing it to just naturally unfold and flow as it does, and sometimes then also consciously directing. It's creating life through the moment, where it's always going out and coming back in, and And also forgetting and remembering the nectar of life, that, there's just the breath alone. And it just having the awareness of the incredible nature of what the physical human body is capable of producing in terms of, all the science labels of stuff, like, and there's so much beyond also. I remember at one point choosing to go back to being blissfully ignorant about my levels internally, because, at some point I discovered that I could play with the I could play with the levels of different chemicals inside the body. That, yeah, it's an interesting experience to experiment with that, when you realize that you actually have conscious control over things like adrenaline and stuff. That at that point where I was really experimenting with all of that stuff, that even just saying the word, then, it brings awareness to it, so it starts to grow. And that's one of the reasons why, for quite a while, I really intentionally, consciously focused on, as 3D, regular, plain and basic reality, to bring my awareness away from that. Because there's just this synergy of leaving it alone. And letting life and the body do what they do best, is maintaining balance, rather than consciously controlling and directing the experience to be a very set, like, it can, people would use different words as like sweet or high or bliss or whatever, but it's, as much as there's a part of me that would enjoy purely existing in that experience, in my human experience, I really value the contrasts of the totality that is available in the human experience, to things that I once perceived as being bad or terrible or whatever. It's like now just being like, that experience is a different experience, which is, annoying or frustrating or uncomfortable or whatever. It's like, yeah, that too. That was something that the internet was really beneficial for. Because when I initially put myself online, there was a part of me that was trying to perceive what it was that people wanted to receive. Whereas now those who are in a vibrational vicinity of this state of being are the ones that are going to be listening. So it's simply law of attraction. For me, just being me and allowing expression to express in its purest form. And anybody's perception beyond that, outside of that vibrational alignment frequency, that's all like when you've got when you've got a hay shed full and then you empty it, there's heaps of chaff at the end, which is like all just the bits of the straw. It's like, that's what that is. That's what that has become. That it's like, occasionally one might hook you. And it's like, oh yeah, I was stuck on that, or wow, I was clinging to that, or whatever. It's, some story was there. And then there's a cat. Yeah, life and nature is really interesting because there's a cat and there's a dog on the other side of that fence. And it's the perfect manifestation of exactly what I was just talking about. Oh. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed as much as I did, because allowing the frequency of the vibration of our own voice, giving ourselves the time and space to express in whatever way, shape or form that is in any given moment, is always worth considering. That's my perception anyway.